and how we are able to achieve successful communication. We covered aspects. Sorry, just a minute. We also covered aspects of public speaking, but just from a general perspective, what to expect and how we can set ourselves to improve in that particular skill of speech. Then we were able to also look at aspects of social media and how social media then influences our day-to-day communication, our interaction with our colleagues at work, our interactions with our friends, our interactions with our families, and how we are able to then use social media appropriately so that it works to our advantage and does not make us slaves. Yeah, so that is communication skills. We will also be dealing with active listening. We will delve deeper into public speaking. We will go through CV or resume writing, and we will also do a final project that will just entail us within the various groups that will have been divided, demonstrating that we've learned what public speaking is all about. So you will be expected to do a final project, and that will be presented during our last class, which, if I'm not wrong, is on the 23rd or 24th of May. Okay, so I had promised that I will share the slides of yesterday's class, and alongside that, the project. My apologies, I was not able to do that. I was still trying to refine your project, and I needed to really finalize in terms of the groups, which I can still see I'm not able to, because today we still have 20 people. So I will use that as the guiding. I'll use that as the guiding point for setting up the groups. I had initially put us in groups of 5 each, so I will reduce that number and work with this 20. If any other people join the class, then we will be able to allocate them to their respective groups. So allow me to post everything, hopefully by the close of today. And then please feel free to ask in case there are any questions, or in case you don't understand anything, feel free to reach out. My contacts, let me just put it in the chat right now so that we don't forget. Okay, so in case anyone will have any question, and in case you will not understand what is required of you, then we will be able to speak to that on phone, on email. But again, I will give us an opportunity to just get an understanding of what the project is all about at the end of this class. So I want us to do a recap. I want us to do a recap of yesterday's session. So I will ask those who were present in yesterday's class, feel free to chime in and just give your overview or thoughts of yesterday's class for the sake of those who are not there, so that at least they're able to catch up. We won't dwell on it for long, maybe just 5 to 6 minutes, then we can move on with today's session. And today I don't want to call people's names. We agreed yesterday that we are all going to try and participate because we all have something to offer. So no answer is wrong. Please feel free to just chime in and give your responses. So for those who are in yesterday's class, maybe you could do a short recap and tell us your understanding, at least one thing you understood. Yes, Bravin, thank you. Please go on.
Hello, hello, morning.
Morning.
Okay, good. So maybe I'll just do it whatever I took from yesterday's conversation. First, of course, we did introductions and um, who we are and people had different expectations of these sessions. And probably the most interesting part of most engaging part of the conversation was looking at how different personalities affect our communications and how we we did different case scenarios and on how we can deal with different uh, just different communicational scenarios and how will you handle it or what will you do, and looking at different personalities, how they affect each other and all that. So I think that was more interesting. And then uh, of course I went forward and did a personality test. I've never taken one. I just know who I am. And then so yeah, it evidently brought out my part of being more aggressive in conversations. And so today I just look forward to that, seeing or moving forward, seeing how how I can coexist with other personalities and still feel part of a team or part of any organization. So thank you. Maybe that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Bravin. Anyone else who wants to share? One more person, a lady, please. Let's see, I will volunteer one just now. Okay. Lillian Wangari, you could share with us your overview or perspective of yesterday's session. Lillian, are you there? Okay, Felicitas, you could help her? Felicitas?
Morning, can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, yesterday was an me. I can say basically, I did not even know that I did not know my ability. I was kind of somebody who was, but yesterday a good grasp I am, and it also made me learn how to different people's personalities. So like so in the workplace, I should be able to balance my personality without having a burnout, and balance my personality without having a burnout or stressed out.
Okay, thank you, Lillian. Felicitas, I see your mic is on. You could share, then we can move on.
That was me, Felicitas.
Okay, it was not Lillian.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lillian, do you want to share? Okay, no problem. Thank you for those who've been able to just give their perspectives from yesterday's class. And I think I can confidently say that we learned something. Yeah, so your sharing at least helps me see your key takeaways and what you are able to introspect on, which shows that learning took place. So today we'll be finishing off with a few areas that we were not able to touch on yesterday. I have projected my screen. Please confirm that you can see it. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll just scroll down to these slides. Our last conversation was on social media, our presence on social media, how it impacts us, and just really it was a session to help us reflect on how we use those channels. Ultimately, at the day, social media is effective and can be used effectively. It's just a matter of being deliberate and seeing what content you want to put out on the various channels. I remember when we shared yesterday, a number of you were saying they want to know how to use these particular communication skills to see how they can position themselves out there. How can they make themselves more visible? So that has to do a lot with personal branding. And I remember us talking about pseudo accounts and just trying to reflect on the aspect of why do we have pseudo accounts? If at all we want to portray a professional image and we want to be perceived in a certain way by those we interact with, those we know and those we don't know, then there was the need for us then to see how are we going to improve going forward. Do I want to be on all channels? Which channels are more effective for me? What content am I putting out on all channels? Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think one thing I want us to remember is that the internet never forgets. Yeah, I'm sure I don't know if some of you have gone to interviews where you're being asked for your social media accounts. Yeah, so the internet never forgets. And sometimes when we are young, we tend to think that that season will never end and we do what we want to do and post what we want to post. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it could work for you or against you. So you want to be very careful on what content you put out on those pages. You want to be very careful on who you let into your platform. And really, at the end of the day, what I'm calling us to do is to be consistent. To be consistent. Let us not live double lives, because ultimately at the end of the day, I don't know, it's tiring. Why would you want to be somebody else at one point, then another person at, another point? Let us be consistent through and through, even on the online space. And that really helps us at the end of the day to be authentic people, because you find that when you're not consistent in one aspect of your life, it tends to show in other aspects. It will show at work. And because our personalities are our personalities, you can only hide for so long. Yeah, so it will always eventually crop up. So my call to us all is to try and be consistent. And then for those of you who are very interested in online visibility and how you can grow yourselves, the tips I would give are as follows. Yeah, choose the channels. After choosing the channels, have a deliberate strategy. What do I want to put out? And at what time do I want to put it out? So you're more or less going to deal with your channels from, in quotes, sort of a professional angle, because then you need to have a content calendar that will guide. On LinkedIn, this is what I want to put out today. It could be a story about what I've learned, what I've experienced, and my view. On Facebook, I want to put out a quote on something to do with, I don't know, life, or something to do with what I'm going through during the week. Or it could just be an honest piece. You see those long post alerts. Whatever you choose to put out, that's upon you. But maybe you could see how and when and where. Yeah? How, when, and where. So the how is to think through the content. This is what I want. The when is the time. The where is the platform. Yeah, so that at no given point is any of your channels dormant, because then again, it doesn't help to have dormant accounts. There are those who join particular channels just to, how do I call it? To watch what others are doing. Yeah. So you're not interested in posting any content. You just want to be a spectator and to see what others are doing and maybe to get content that is interesting to you, that's still okay. But at the end of the day, I would say try as much as possible not to have dormant accounts. I think from a personal perspective, I have really struggled with the thought of whether to join TikTok or not. And I'm not the type to jump into every other trend. So for me, it has to be deliberate. I have to have a reason as to why I'm joining a particular channel. And recently, when we had crisis on our social media channels, thanks to this, how do I call her? A socialite or celebrity called Nyarkano, who came to the university, and yeah, it became a whole different story. So as the communications manager, I found myself having to join TikTok because precisely on that channel is where we were having the crisis. So for me, I am on that platform basically because of my role in the university, and I have to monitor what is happening on our channel because we cannot be having impending crisis on our social media channels and I'm there saying, no, I don't want to join because it will influence me in this and this way. It's to see if you're joining it, then you're joining it with a particular intention and you're ensuring that you're fulfilling that particular intention. So we can now move on from social media and go to the next aspect, which is on data privacy. So this is where we will begin our session today. Data and privacy. And I'm sure this is not new to us. If we've been keen to see what is happening in the industry today, a number of companies are being sued, or those companies themselves are suing people for using either content, images, videos, you mention it, anything that is of someone's likeness or someone's intellectual property. People are being sued, yeah, for using that information because they have not gotten or obtained consent. So it is very important for us that even as we navigate through this aspect of communication, and we are constantly finding ourselves just lifting images or lifting songs and posting them on our channels, or lifting content and posting it on your channel and not crediting the person, to know that we are likely to fall into serious trouble. And the one thing, of course, is to have that awareness. Then comes the question, so as an individual, what can I do about it? Yeah, we are having universities, yeah, suing or being sued by individuals because at one point they were in the institution, a very nice photo was taken during a happy moment, of course, graduation or your orientation, and you find that image being used on the billboard to advertise, I don't know, computer packages or to advertise a course. And yet you only consented to it being used or being taken for that particular event. You did not consent for it to be used as a marketing image. So it's good for us to be aware of these trends that are taking place. And as individuals, then we also need to be cautious that as we lift content, we must credit the appropriate sources. Yeah. Recently, I found a blogger, an Italian blogger, who I don't know where they came across my photo, my wedding photo, and it is what they have used for their story. And really, at the end of the day, I think when they were putting it there, they did not imagine that the owner would come across it. Of course, when I saw it, I was very shocked. And it's not one of those things you easily bump into. You see, it's a blog, so it was sent to me by somebody different. So just to know that whatever we put out there, to know that people are using images, people are using our content, yeah, and therefore we must be very keen on the aspects of intellectual property. We must be very keen on when we are giving people permission. Like I can imagine, for me, this could have happened when we were having our videography and photography wedding supply, because they would want to market their work. But then even as they market their work, that just generally means that your images will be out there. Yeah, and he may not have control of who lifts it or who uses it. So again, to know that some decisions that we make may not have immediate repercussions, but ultimately at the end of the day, to know that the internet really has a large footprint and there's no way to erase whatever we put there. Ultimately, at the end of the day, whatever we post can somehow be traced. Yeah, I don't know if any of you has anything to share around data protection or an experience you've come across that would help us just better understand this aspect of data protection. Please feel free to share. Any one of you who has come across data protection issues, or you've been a culprit yourself? And these days, Facebook, you'll find that the managers of the online platforms are not allowing people to just lift songs from anywhere and just put it on their posts. You will find that the many times you try to post and you don't credit the source, then Facebook or Instagram refuses to upload that song for you. I don't know if you've come across that as you post your content on social media. At least I've seen that every time we are trying to post on the university channels, we normally have that issue. You must credit the source. Anyone who would like to share? Okay. So we can move on to the aspect of crisis. And here I will ask Lola to help me put you into breakout rooms. But before we go into the breakout rooms, I will require us to just actively listen to the case. Actively listen to the case, because then it will help you know what to discuss. So many times when we talk about crisis, now there's a video here that will play, but before it plays, let's we will look at this case. So many times when we talk about the aspect of crisis, it's not a matter of if it will happen. The truth of the matter is crisis is bound to happen. It's just a matter of when. So it's not an if, it is when it will happen. And when it does happen, are we ready? Are we ready to deal with it? Yeah, be it from a work perspective, from a personal perspective, from a home front perspective. We must always know that it's part and parcel of life, but from a communications perspective, you want to be very clear about the message you're giving, because the minute anyone notices your messages are conflicting, that you're saying one thing at one point, then the next time you're asked, you're saying something different, then they dismiss you and you lose your credibility. So one thing you want to ensure during moments of crisis is that your message is consistent through and through. And PR practitioners have been accused of always, spinning, not telling the truth or covering up. The truth of the matter is, as a PR practitioner, I am of the opinion that you should always be honest, because the day you lie, it will catch up with you. Somebody will unearth something and it will always come back. Now, you want to be careful how you reveal this truth. In the case that you have to communicate that, let's say it's a crisis that has involved the death of people. Let's look at COVID-19. We were all there. We got to go through it. We got to go through the scares, and we saw how the government was handling this communication. Many times when you heard that there is an X number of people who've been affected or X number of people have passed away, do you actually think you are getting the accurate numbers? Most likely not. Is it that the government was lying to us? No, but they were trying to manage us, which is a big component of communication during crisis. You don't want to give people a scare by saying we have lost over 100 people. You know, today we have lost 30 people. Today we've lost 50 people. So in totality, if in a day we've lost 500 people, you want to be careful to manage that number and stagger that communication. So you don't give the actual number, because then you create a scare, you create panic. And when you create panic, people react in different ways. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to be honest, but see how you stagger that communication so that you manage your stakeholders. At the end of the day, you don't want a negative response. You want them to receive the information with a bit of brevity, with a bit of soberness, but not in a panic pandemonium, no. Because then that creates for you another opportunity for crisis. So consistency of message, knowing your facts, then becomes very important. Please don't go to social media and post things if you're not sure of the facts. Don't write a communication piece if you're not sure of the facts, because somebody will challenge you. Yeah, so be sure of the facts. Be the master of your content. Yesterday, we really spoke about that. At the end of the day, when you stand up to speak before an audience, you are the expert. And being the expert means that you have mastery of your content. You know what you're saying. You've gone through it, you've rehearsed it, you've researched and confirmed that this is the actual position. So know what you're saying, have your facts right, be consistent in terms of how you're saying it, stagger the communication, break down the message so that you're not overwhelming people. Then again, to remember, at the end of the day, our stakeholders are different. You will have parents, you'll have children, you'll have, you know, you mention it, depends on your context. People are not at the same level. So how do you disseminate your information to the various levels you have in your context, you have in your environment? You have to break it down for the different levels. You don't communicate jargon to children because they will not understand what you're saying. Yeah, you don't communicate jargon of a particular industry. For example, most of you are in the tech field. So when you rise up to speak before an audience of people who are not techies, how do you break down that information so that they are with you, they are understanding what you're saying and not just hearing the jargon and getting nothing out of it? So when we talk about crisis, then it's very important, again, for all your stakeholders to have the same piece of information. And you'll notice that media people are very cheeky. So if I give you an example of a crisis that has happened maybe in the institution, Strathmore, I take the example of the food poisoning that took place and many students were affected. Do you think when the media come here, they'll be very interested to talk to management? Most likely not. Yes, they may want to hear from management, but they will go to the guard. They will go to the cleaner. Yeah, before they even go to that management person, they will go to those people who are likely less to be interviewed. And what do they want to do? They want to get the actual story. They want to get the actual story because apparently it is perceived that people in the lower cadre within the organization will always give the full information without withholding anything. And that's why many times you hear, even when there's a whistleblowing and something is about to be unearthed in institutions, you'll know that media people are always trying to hide or to protect their witnesses. Yeah, so they don't reveal the people who gave them the information. And so you want to ensure at the end of the day that from top to lower cadre, all of you are singing the same song. So that's where we talk about having a holding statement. Yeah, it could even be at the family level. Something has happened. Everybody is on your case. Yeah, how do you portray a unified front such that one person of the family is not saying one thing, another one saying a different one? So bring yourselves together, have a holding statement and say, if anybody is to ask us anything, yeah, as a family, this is our stand, this is our agreement, this is what we are saying. Yeah, and ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to ensure a level of honesty in that holding statement. Because again, we say that the day you try to lie to people, one day it will catch up with you. And when it does catch up, it's never a very good affair, because then it takes you back to many things that you may not want to remember. So here I have our social case. Kindly pay attention so that we don't have to repeat it 15 times. It's a long case. So I'll introduce the characters one by one. So we have this gentleman here called Hela. He's the main character in this story. Hela is married to Busara. Together, they have 4 daughters, a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old. Unfortunately, Hela develops a bout of pneumonia and he passes away. We introduce a different character, Hela's mother. We introduce another character, Hela's best friend. Then we have that lady on the left called Slekini. Slekini, according to Hela, is the true love of his life for the following reasons. Slekini has managed to give Hela a son, Hela Jr. He's 8 years old. Then Slekini adopted Princess Hela, who is from a previous relationship that Hela had. And this is why, according to Hela, Slekini is the true love of his life. So, given that context, I want us to organize ourselves into 3 groups. And the 3 groups are as follows: a funeral committee, the lawyers, Busara's family. Now, kindly listen to the instructions clearly. For the funeral committee, your role is to organize and ensure that the different stakeholders are able to come to the same table and discuss matters of the funeral in an amicable manner. How do you ensure that there is no conflict? How do you ensure you cater to all those represented and to their needs in terms of ensuring that the funeral proceedings go through? Busara's family. You have just heard about Slekini, Hela Jr., and Princess Hela for the first time. You're trying to mourn Hela, but you also have this new reality to deal with, and a funeral must take place. What are some of the conditions that you will give? Do you accept this? Don't you accept this? What is your stand? The third group, the lawyers. And here is also where Hela's BFF comes in. Before Hela passed away, he left a will. He left a will that must be executed by the lawyer. Hela's best friend, Hela's mother, have always been aware about Slekini, Hela Jr., and Princess Hela. Your role as the lawyers is to ensure that you communicate this will, that you divide the property appropriately, and communicate it to Busara and to Slekini. So, Lola, please help me divide the group into breakout sessions. We will have 10 minutes. I think 10 minutes is sufficient for us to discuss. Then we will come back and have a plenary session. And then we will move on to the next agenda. Sorry, these slides here are saying Q&A session because this is where we should have ended yesterday. But ideally, we will move on to a different set of slides. So here we are. If there's any question, I can take it before you go into the breakout rooms. I hope we are together, and I hope we have understood the case. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have at this point. Yes, I see a hand up from Dennis. Please go on. Dennis, your hand is up. Do you have a question?
The breakout rooms are already up. I think they can confirm.
Okay. Since there is no question, please join your breakout rooms. Have your discussions. It is currently 9:50. Lillian and Naomi, are you in groups? You seem not to have joined any group. Lillian and Naomi? Lola? I'm expecting the teams to resume back to the plenary at 10:05. Lola, are you able to chat in the various groups?
Yes, yes. They have how
Okay.
many minutes?
Let's give them like 6 more minutes so they come in at 10:07. 6
10 or
minutes.
7. Okay.
Yeah. And for which group? Thanks.
Yeah.
You can now, yes, I am seeing people have started coming back. Okay, I think we are now all back to the main session, and I hope you had a good debate and fruitful discussions. So we can have presentations taking place from the different groups. I hope you chose yourselves one person who will speak on behalf of the group. So we had the funeral committee, we had the lawyers, and we had Busara's family. Can we please start with Busara's family? Busara's family, please start us off. You have 2 minutes to put forward your case.
Okay, I'll start off. Okay, we were a team, but I may not capture everything, so
Okay.
I think my members are free to jump in when they please. So our context was first of all, there's nothing we can do about it. The situation is there at hand, so acceptance is only the best way to maneuver this whole facade. And then secondly, when we talked about what we needed is first of all to finish up the burial, then have a sit down and understand the will. But on this point of the will, we were thinking in the context of normally what happens when legally, actually, the kids are supposed to have equal rights to their father's property. So technically, whatever swing the will was taking, it needs to put into consideration that 4 kids came from this family and 2 from the other family. So unless the man was very unfair and did not disputed the kids on Usara's side, it will make zero sense if they were not put into solid consideration. So putting that into context, if the property was to be divided with the kids into context, it means the property was divided within the 6 kids. They're still under 18. Busara is the custodian of that property until they turn 18. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dennis. Are there any additions from the group members before we move on to the next group? Okay, Busara's family, what I want to confirm is, okay, when you say that Busara is the custodian of the property until the kids turn 18, does it mean she's custodian of all the property, including Hela Jr. and Princess Hela? Now that you said you have no choice but to accept.
No. What happened is the property will be divided into 6, right? Then you're going to be a custodian to the 4, while Sakina is custodian to the 2. So technically she has a right to, because we are not sure of how she got the kids, but the fact that they are there and they are recognized as children to Hela, they have every right to get some property.
Okay. Let us move on to the funeral committee. Funeral committee.
I think I'll start off. We discussed about how we should approach this matter. We decided that the mother and the best friend, Ella's mother and Ella's best friend should first meet up with Busara and talk to her about the existence of the deceased mistress and 2 other children, one of whom was adopted by Slekini and the other who belonged to Slekini and the deceased. And I think this we do this majorly to prevent any conflict that would arise later on during the funeral. If the mother, if Busara figures out that the deceased had another wife, so you tell her in advance before she figures out during the funeral, because there might be an altercation if she figures it out then. And so after this, we go talk to Slekini, the mistress, and first of all tell her about the demise of the husband, sorry, the demise of the deceased, whom she had a relationship with. And I think we majorly do this for purposes of succession, because we don't want to end up with Slekini, the mistress, digging up or obtaining a court order, digging up the burial of the deceased, claiming that the deceased had other children that were not included in the will. So to ensure that rests in peace without any disturbance, we make sure that she is informed of the demise, and if she wants to take any DNA before the deceased is buried, she does this before then. Yes, that's what we came up with, unless there's any other addition.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your contribution. And the final group, the lawyers, let us hear your voice.
So, hi guys, I am representing the lawyers from my side. And I think it is our mandate to just execute as the will states. And this will be entirely determined if this will was written with a sober mind and it has taken all the legal procedures to be approved as a well written and as an approved will. Let's say if this side chick to us, the side chick will come to us with the statements of, let's say, what if Hella had taken full responsibility for funding the fees for these kids, funding the maybe school fees and upkeep for these kids. And on the other side, since we know Hella had a wife, so it will be our entire mandate to just execute as the will suggests. If it is an equal share for the same, that is what we will execute. And if not, definitely we will just go back to if was the will written according to the law, and was he in a sober mind, a sober state when he was writing the will. So with this, I think we will take a very slow and steady approach, because it is not us who are going to break the news to the wife, but most probably the family members, Hella's mom and the best friend definitely will go and tell Hella's wife the eventuality of Hella's lover, or love of Hella's love of his life. So I think to us it will be essentially just executing as the will suggests.
Okay.
If any of my teammates want to add on something.
Unknown user, what
So
is your
first-
name? What is your name, unknown user? We need to know your name.
Me.
Oh, I am a named user. Sorry, this is
Yeah,
Juma.
it reads unknown user.
I'm sorry, this is Juma Wisdom. I think I joined with 2 devices, that's why it's not
Okay.
sharing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Margaret.
So I feel like in this entire context, the two people that are gonna bring this family together is the BFF and Hella's mother, because I believe the BFF was pretty much aware of Hella having a lover on the side. So now the mother would play a very big role in moving things around with the first wife, where else the BFF will be at the best position to convince the lover on the side to come to terms and agreement for this funeral process to be easy, and also the reading of the will.
Very, very true. Thank you. Thank you, Margaret, for your contribution. And thank you for speaking on behalf of the ladies. I was very worried about the ladies in this group because all the 3 groups, we've had men speaking, which is so different. I commend them. But please, ladies, we need to hear your voice in this class. Yeah. Now, I am very tickled. Let me say tickled by the various responses that you've given. I will not say any is wrong or right. We all have our different perspectives. As long as from the group perspective, you all had the same consensus. We've had groups that agreed to disagree, you know? And then you see this particular case plays out very differently depending on context, depending on which region you're in. I've done it with the Rwandese who are more calm and who took the approach that Dennis said, it has happened, there's nothing we can do. Then I have dealt with the Kenyans who did not want to recognize or hear anything to do with Slekini, his children, whether she was the love of his, they did not want, so they disregarded the entire fact that those people exist and did not want to hear of it. That is the Kenyans for you. Yeah. And now let's go to real life example, because this does happen. And you find that people show up in funerals like Busara here, who is the first wife, you know, just to protect her territory. You'd see that within a funeral, people actually deploy policemen. So that's a very chaotic funeral already, because you can see people have refused to unify. Yeah, and these things do happen in life. And that's why I said when dealing with crisis, remember it is not if, it is when, and it will present itself in different circumstances. So as a communicator, as people who are learning communication skills, yeah, you want to ensure that whatever you're learning in this class plays out in the different areas of your life. Yeah, you want to ensure that whatever you pick up from these lessons, you're able to apply across, you know, across all levels of life. And the truth of the matter is, if you remember the few steps I gave us on consistency of communication, on how do you break down this news, on how do you manage, you know, how you break down the news. Do you say everything all together? Do you, how do you stagger the communication so that the person is not overwhelmed, is not shocked, does not react in a negative way? It becomes very important. And I think I want to applaud all of you for the discussions that you've had in an amicable way. At least there were no fights in this group. I have seen none so far, because I have had discussions where the class went haywire, you know, and it is just a case. So you can imagine if it was in real life. Yeah. So I hope we've picked 1 or 2 things about crisis communication from that particular case. And also a key aspect that this case was testing is active listening. Yeah, I hope you are able to hear out the different views of each and every person in the group, and that the person presenting on behalf of the group was then able to relay to the entire class, as a group, this is what we decided. Yeah, I like how the lawyers say, you know, they've taken their stand, they've taken their position. Our role is not to unify, you know, the families. That cannot be their role. That has to be the role of the BFF and Mama Hela, because ultimately at the end of the day, Mama Hela is the elder in the family. She knew about all this. How do you bring the people together? So also knowing within the crisis, where do I stand as an individual? What is my role? Please do not assume roles that are not yours. If you're not the spokesperson in a particular crisis, do not speak on behalf of the company. Do not speak on behalf of the family. Refer to the senior most. That way, you ensure there are no blunders. The problem occurs when everybody thinks that they can communicate and everybody thinks that they can say and respond to mass, to many people, that is what is happening. And that is false, because the minute we take that approach, then we look very disorganized. We have people giving information from all corners, some true, some not true, some speculations. So you want to ensure you avoid such scenarios. So thank you very much. Now I want us to move to our next discussion today, and I had alluded to it yesterday. Our discussion will be, can you see my screen, or I have not shared yet? Let me see. Share. So I had alluded to this yesterday. Today we will be dealing with the aspect of active listening. And active listening is very important. Again, a skill that cuts across all facets of life. Because if you're a person who does not know how to listen to others, then again, you'll scatter your relationships. You'll scatter all those around you because they will never feel valued. Yeah, they'll never feel like they have a sounding board, somebody to hear them out, somebody to get their perspective. Then also remember, at the end of the day, human beings are meant to have interpersonal communication. Yeah, so for you to relate to another person, for you to be able to reach out, and reach out here means really appeal to the heart, to the emotion, to the senses, to the intellectual capacity of the other person, then it means you really have to listen to what they're saying. Yeah, and many times, if you're very keen and if you're very honest with yourself, we listen to respond. We listen to know, so this is what they're saying, how can I respond? Yeah, so our listening is very distracted, and that's why even when we speak up or when we want to respond, we either take a defensive tone, we either are not sure of what we are responding, meaning we are responding to our own questions or responding to our own things. So we are not there fully. So this class challenges us to be masters of active listening. Yeah, masters of active listening. So let's see how we can achieve that. So what is active listening? What is active listening? It means that you are present, body, mind, all your faculties and senses, even if you want your soul. You are there fully. And normally we say, when you show up before somebody, show up holistically. Yeah, don't show up and your mind is probably thinking about the next meeting you're having. Your mind is wandering on all corners except for where you are. So a call for us to learn how to be present. To be present means we are there, sitting with the people we are with, not on phone. These gadgets that have come to control us are really playing a big one on us. Yeah, not on our phones. Sometimes you go to a room and everybody is on the phone. Yeah, everyone is on the phone. So you wonder, are we actually listening? And if you do ask them, they'll tell you, but I'm listening to you. I'm just not looking at you, but I'm listening to you. Yeah. So is that active listening? No. Yeah. So it can be defined in many ways, but for you to listen fully, it means you're concentrating, you're understanding, you're responding either through words, through gestures, and remember, our face shows everything, even that which we don't want it to show. Yeah. So again, our gestures tend to tell us whether we are listening or not. Our actions, our body language. Yeah. You may look like you're listening, but what your body language is telling me is different. Yeah. And normally it's said when you go before somebody and they folded their arms like this, yeah, it means that they are closed. You don't even know how to approach that person. Yeah. So you want to portray at all times a calm demeanor, a demeanor that makes sure you are approachable. We cannot always be wearing long faces, frowns, and expect people to find it easy to communicate to us. Again, yesterday we discussed the aspect of personality. How does our personality influence our listening? If I am a blue person, remember we said the blues are analytical, deep thinkers, overthink, in fact, go into analysis paralysis. If you're a red, meaning you're a very aggressive communicator, meaning it's your way or the highway. And if you know that that is your weakness as a red, then what do you do to ensure you actively listen? If you're a yellow, the happy-go-lucky people, never a dull moment, always focused on the present, yeah? They're almost like the sunshine, a walking sunshine around you. How do you cause them to focus on what you're saying? How do you ensure that as the person speaking, you are compelling enough for somebody to listen to you? If you're a green, the empathetic type, greens are very good with listening. Actually, listening is their strength, yeah? Because then they like to put themselves in the mind and in the shoes of the person they're listening to. They almost want to be, there with them, always feeling sorry, always trying to identify with. So greens are very good with listening. So again, it's to know, where am I at? Depending on my personality, am I a good listener? Am I not a good listener? And then based on what we are going to learn today, how can I then improve and move forward to being a better person? So it's very important to practice this skill of active listening again, because it enhances relationships. Imagine being in a family where no one listens to you, being in a friendship or a relationship where the person is constantly the one who knows it all. You cannot say anything, you cannot add anything. It becomes impossible, it becomes difficult. You almost cannot resolve conflicts, because the minute you open your mouth to speak, they are speaking. You have no chance to voice. When you're an active listener, you foster a sense of trust. The other person is able to trust you. The other person is able to confide and open up more. Yeah. And with active listening, then comes what we discussed yesterday, mutual understanding. And remember, we said communication is not complete until we have a common understanding that what you're saying and what I'm hearing and understanding is one thing. If that does not happen, then we have not communicated, we have not actively listened. Then we move on to the components of active listening. So what is it that makes me know that you as participants or that the people we are interacting with are listening actively? Again, we look at their body language. Yeah. You can have a person who is everywhere. They could be cleaning their spectacles, touching the hair, looking at their phone, looking the other way. So you wonder, are they really listening? Are they really listening? And remember, when I began this session, I said it is important to have a posture that encourages others to listen to you. That every time you stand up to speak, every time you're seated in a room, that people can hear your voice, it will be because you've given them a reason to listen to you. So are you open? Are you open? How do you sit? How do you sit when you're talking to others? What are some of the gestures that you portray? You could nod your head to mean you're understanding and agreeing with the person. As the person speaking, always remember you want to avoid distractions. So please don't be talking and your hands are thrown about everywhere, because then you begin to confuse the people you're talking to. So you want to know how to position your hands. There are those who never know what to do with their hands when they're communicating. And then that becomes a very big source of distraction, because should we focus on what you're saying? Should we focus on the actions you're doing? Yeah. So please figure out, what do you want to do with your hands? Do you want to tuck them on your laps? Do you want to put them on the table? How do you want to deal with your hands? And if you must use them, then it is once in a while, not every other movement, because there are people who cannot talk without moving these hands. Yeah. Then again, verbal affirmations. Verbal affirmations. Yeah. And you don't want to sound like every other time somebody's talking, I see, okay, okay. Sometimes you listen, sometimes you nod, sometimes you say, But it cannot be all the time, because then again, that's interactive and it depends on the context. If you're just the two of you, that's fine. But if you're in a meeting and you can imagine you're one person constantly saying, I see, okay, I understand. The rest will look at you and wonder, okay, is this conversation for all of us or it's between two people? So you want to take care of the context and the verbal affirmations. When are you using them? How are you using them? Balance. Balance depending on your environment. Then we go to the reflective responses. Yeah. So sometimes when a speaker is delivering and they want to check if you're understanding. So if you're the two of you, maybe you could say, maybe I could try and summarize what you've said. Then you try and paraphrase what they've said to check. So is this what you mean? And this happens a lot when we are taking instructions from our leaders. So after they've given the instructions, we want to be sure we've understood. So we would ask them, let me just repeat in case I have not understood. So this is what we've asked and this is what we've agreed. So you always want to check that you're on common ground. And there is where also the clarifying questions come about. Yeah. So you want to ask questions to clarify whether you've understood a given point. then it's to know, when do you interject with the questions? When do you interject with the questions? As much as possible, try to avoid interruption, because when you interrupt the person in the middle of their speech, in the middle of their presentation, then you make them lose their train of thought. Another thing, it wastes a lot of time, because you begin the question, somebody else has a question, and maybe your questions are preempting what is coming next in the presentation. So you want to ensure you wait until the person finishes presenting, and then you ask the question. Or you want to wait up until the break point, because it depends on how long the meeting is. Sometimes some meetings have breaks. So you interject and ask this question during the breaking point. Or it would be good that as the person is introducing a session, that they're able to cue their listeners. You may ask questions at this point. Then that's your chance to seek clarification. But at all given instances, let's try to avoid interrupting, because the minute you interrupt, it means you're listening to answer, you're listening to respond. So when actively listening, you will be the person who will have a notebook and a pen with you, so that you quickly jot down an area of concern or an area you'd like clarification. And that makes it easier, because then you won't forget. And when the time comes for you to ask, you'll ask it having a full perspective, because the person will have finished their presentation. So you'll ask it not having preempted maybe what would have been in the presentation, but asking from a gap perspective, that something was presented and you noticed this was missing. I hope we are together up to that point. So how does active listening help? Yeah. Just to go back to what I was saying, it helps you understand. It helps you understand the speaker's or the presenter's perspective. Then again, it strengthens relationship, because if you are communicating to somebody and they're really good at listening, they're really good at helping you break down or imagine or contextualize what they're saying, then it is really an advantage. And normally, from a relationship perspective, the men are always accused of wanting to always give solutions. And I wouldn't blame them, because that's how men are wired. Sometimes a lady would want to share just to exhale and remove it from themselves and their system, because they are maybe worried, because they are frustrated. They don't necessarily need a solution. They just want a listening ear. But then you find the men are very keen to give solutions, even where we are not asking for solutions. So again, to know that men and women perceive things in a different manner. So once we are aware of that, then how do we catch ourselves, so that as a man, I'm not just quick to give a solution, because maybe what the lady wanted is just hear me out. Yeah. And not only in relationships, sometimes you will be a lady and your leader, your boss is a man. Yeah. So how do you take care of those small things? Then conflict resolution. Again, when there is conflict, you want to ensure you give people time to just speak their mind and heart. Yeah, of course, with a lot of respect and not stripping people of their dignity, because when then we lower that bar of respect, then there is no conversation. The conversation is lost. People begin to rise in tempers, and we're not able to have a sober conversation. Yeah. Then another thing with active listening, it helps in problem solving. It helps in problem solving. Many times I will challenge us as we actively listen. Let's not listen with the mind of giving solutions. Yeah. Sometimes when people talk to us, let's throw back to them the questions. What would you do? What do you think is the best way to go about this? Because most times, if you do give people the opportunity, you realize they have the solutions within themselves. We are not the masters of, every other problem. We are not the custodians of all the solutions. Yeah. So sometimes let's hold back a bit. Let's hear the people out. Let's hear their thoughts out. Let's hear how they would prefer to go about situations. Yeah. And after giving them that opportunity, then we can give our contribution, because we will have heard them and heard them fully. We will have given them a chance to place their context, to place the problem on the table. What would they have done about it? Then we can go ahead and suggest. Yeah. So let's refrain from constantly giving unsolicited advice, because half the time people own the solutions within themselves. And then remember, when it comes to problem solving, when it comes to conflict resolution, sometimes when people come to us, we could be the mentors and we could be their coaches. But ultimately, at the end of the day, remember, everyone owns their journey and everyone's journey is different. It cannot be the same as ours. We can only share our experiences and hope that it will help. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they have to run the journey on their own. So either using the examples we've given them or using the solutions that they've self-identified. Because when you take the coaching approach, which is to ask relevant questions, you find that the person introspects. And when they introspect, they're able to give solutions from within. Okay, so let's go to barriers of active listening. What are some of those things that inhibit listening? Okay, I don't know what just happened. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
we can see it.
Okay, it has disappeared on my side. Just give me a minute. What are you seeing on the screen at the moment? What does it read?
Essentials of
Essentials
public
of
speaking.
public speaking.
Okay, just a minute. Mine is reading something different. And now?
How can I improve?
Perfect. So we're looking at the barriers and we're talking about what are some of those things that inhibit our listening. Yeah, you could be in an environment where someone is speaking and it's noisy. So that becomes a barrier. Your mind could also be clouded with so many thoughts that you're not able to focus on what the speaker is saying. That becomes a distraction. And in communication, we normally say that noise is a factor that must be taken care of, because the entire model of communication could go from the sender of the message to the channel to the receiver, and that entire circle could either be complete or incomplete depending on the environment. Is the environment conducive for communication to take place? As I show up in a room, do I have noise in my mind because something has happened at home or something has happened in the office that is barring me from listening to the speaker? How do I overcome it? Yeah. So to ensure that every time we are in a space where we want to focus, then we are there fully, and that we create the conducive environment to enable us understand and hear out the other person. So distractions could be environmental and they could be personal. Yeah. Then again, remember we have our own biases. We are people who have been in the world for so many years, depending on how old you are. You've gone through experiences, you have your own culture. So as individuals, we have our own biases because of the experiences we've gone through. So somebody could be talking and whatever they're saying doesn't make sense to you because maybe in your culture, that's not how you do things. Yeah, because maybe in your working environment, that's not how you do things. So you find it hard to listen to what they're saying because of your bias. Yeah. Then sometimes you have people who are always interrupting conversations. They just cannot hold back. They have to say what they want to say. So you have those people who are constantly interrupting your flow of thought and the flow of communication. Then again, there's the aspect of judgment. So somebody is speaking in front of you, and instead of listening to the content, you're judging their dressing style, you're judging their speaking style, you're judging their content, you're judging everything about them. So at the end of the day, do you really hear what they're saying? Do you come out with the intended meaning of the message they're trying to convey? Definitely not. So we want to ensure we take care of some of those barriers so that at all times we are active listeners. So how do we overcome them? The first one is, of course, to minimize the distractions. And yesterday, I remember us saying, at the end of the day, this is a class, and it will only be as serious as we want to make it serious. We will only learn in as much as we want to learn. So how do I ensure around me, my environment encourages me to listen and to have minimized distractions? Then again, when you're having interpersonal communication, practice empathy, extend kindness. Yeah. I remember yesterday Bravin telling us he will go head to head because that's his personality. Yeah. And we are all different, and that's okay. But given a particular context, let's know when to extend kindness. Let's know when to put ourselves in the speaker's shoe. Let's know how to understand. And to practice empathy does not mean that we allow people to step on us or to step all over us or to take the blame constantly. No. To practice empathy means that you understand what this person is saying, but that you also want them to rise to a level of professionalism in dealing with you. So how do you put out that message in a manner that is respectful, authoritative, yes, but respectful at the same time? Then there's the aspect of take a pause before you respond. Take a pause before you respond. If it's a very heated argument, remember yesterday we said, let time pass. If it has happened today morning, don't be so quick to go and resolve everything today morning. Because in the fullness of time and with time, we are able to calm down. We're able to look at things in a different way. You'll be surprised what time can do. Revisiting a conversation that happened today, tomorrow, could do you wonders. You would find the person is in a better mood. You would find that the person has self-reflected and known their areas of weakness, and they will actually apologize when you approach them to bring back the conversation to the table. Yeah. So at all times, pause before responding. Then suspend your judgment. Suspend your judgment. You may be in a class, give or take like this one. I'm sure this information is not new to you. These are things you've heard over time. But imagine we are still having this conversation. Why? Because reminders don't hurt. Yeah, reminders don't hurt. It's these constant reminders that help us pick up skills, pick up habits that are able to steer us to be in a better place. So I don't expect that I'm saying things that are so new to you, but I hope that through these reminders, we are able to introspect and see, aha, today we've talked about this. Actually, this has been an area of weakness for me. How can I be better? Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether you already know something. It doesn't matter whether you've gone through this experience before. Hear the other person out. And most times, if you hear the other person out, even if you do know, you always come off with something new to learn. You always come off with a different perspective. And that is how you grow in life. Okay. So moving on from that is the aspect of now having listened to all this, how do I improve? I want us to know that active listening is not by chance. You have to be so conscious, you have to be so mindful, you have to be so deliberate. And because most of us have the habit of doing other things as we listen in the excuse of maybe multitasking, you will be shocked how deliberate you have to be when it comes to active listening. Yeah, and it's something you have to decide and make it a habit, a daily habit. And then with time, it becomes part of you. But you have to have decided that it is what you want. Then seeking feedback. Seeking feedback. Ask others for input. Remember, we said anytime you're listening to others, there's the aspect of asking them. So if I hear you correctly, is this what you're saying? Is this what you're saying? Always check if you've understood what the speaker intended you to understand. Then be patient. Be patient. Allow the presenter to say what they have to say. Then, if you do have an area to interject, an idea to add, you may add, but listen first. Yeah, so be patient, seek feedback, and practice mindfulness. Do we have any questions when it comes to active listening? Let me pause at that point. Do we have any questions? I don't see any hand up, so that means that we have all understood what active listening is. Okay. So today we were to finish off with the overview of communications, which is what we were handling yesterday. We've talked about active listening, and now I would like us to delve into public speaking. At the moment, it's 10:47, meaning we have slightly less than 15 minutes. So I will introduce the aspect of public speaking. We'll go through it. And this is what your project will also be about. So I hope it will give you ideas on how to go about the final project, even as you will be put into groups to begin working on it. And that particular project will be face-to-face because you will now then need to come for a physical session, and we will be able to go through your various presentations. So let's move on to public speaking. Allow me to share the slides. So as we begin this session, just to hear from you all, because in one way or another, I believe you also have knowledge on what public speaking is about. Maybe somebody could share with us an instance where they've had to speak before an audience, and how did that make you feel? Anyone could share. Again, I said I don't want to get into the habit of always over volunteering people. Feel free to raise your hand and share. The first time you had to step before an audience, how did that make you feel? Were you able to deliver? Were you not able to deliver? Since then, how have you grown? Yes, Dennis?
Well, the first time I was in primary school. Because I've always enjoyed public speaking. It normally offers a lot of insight and growth within me. So at first, I used to panic, and I used to have what we call a mix of ideas, whereby you start a conversation, realize that, oh, I left out a better idea than this one. And then after you've taken up the story, it's growing, then you realize, well, I would have changed the narrative a bit and come up with something different. Maybe I would have tried something, another avenue. At some point, I used to put in a little bit of comic lines, then they backfire. So, but one thing that I've learned over time is how to analyze my audience first and understand at what point I need to engage them and at what point I need to inform them. So it's still, I would still say it's work in progress, but I would say I've advanced from where I was.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Felistas, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
My experience has some similarities to Dennis, but something I can add is that I'm the kind of person. My first public speaking was presenting a school project towards a board of lecturers, and I can say I did my preparation. I wrote my notes and everything. Like I even practiced the night before all the aspects that we're usually told, like practice before a mirror. But the moment I stepped I stepped in front of that audience, it's like my words just vanished. And then I had these 2 minutes where I was like blank. They're looking at me, and then I'm like, these people are so learned, like they know everything that I'm about to say. So I can't even, like, they have years of experience. They have years, even if I miss just one word, I was even picturing the facial expressions that they will give me. But the moment I started, I introduced myself, I introduced my project. Okay, I was even feeling my heart rate increased like times 2. But the moment I took a deep breath, I took a deep breath, and then I stated my project title. And then I don't know, somewhere, somehow, words just started flowing. And then I was like, wow, I'm done. I've said something. I was so happy.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Public speaking or being able to stand in front of people is not inborn. It really isn't. It comes over time. And even for those who, from a personality perspective, are sanguines and just find it easy to stand before people and talk, and they make it look so easy, believe you me, they go through a lot to prepare for those sessions. And maybe I could just share something interesting that happened last year. I was managing an event with 2 celebrities, that is Wahoo and Nameless. So they were performing together. And when I was backstage with them, you would not believe it. First of all, their first request for me was that when they come into campus, they don't want to interact with any student or staff. They just want to be locked up in a room alone so that they don't discharge a lot of energy because they are going for a high level performance. Another thing is that when Nameless first came to the institution, you see everybody recognizes him. So the guards almost want to greet him, almost everyone wants to surround them. But the minute he saw me, he just said, "Yo, Martha, get me out of here, let's go." Yeah. It made me wonder, okay, is this Wahoo backstage, breathing in and out like as if her life depended on it, sweating before a performance? And they told me, imagine when we stand before people to perform, people think it's so natural, but it takes so much courage from them. And if you do know creatives are introverts. So both Wahoo and Nameless are introverts. But of course, when they stand before you to perform, you cannot tell because they've mastered their art. They will go before you, they will perform, and they will do their best, and you'll never tell that it's actually taking a lot from them. Another one who was quite an interesting one is Nikita Kering, because now Nikita could not stand anyone taking a photo with, not because she's too fussy, but she's scared of people, okay? First of all, she's still young, yes, that's a given, but she's a public figure who really does not enjoy this thing of crowds being around her. While she will be on stage, she will jump, she will sing, she will hype the crowd. But after that, please don't follow her. Please don't be around her. She just wants to disappear, go into the car and go back to her corner. So you see, even that realization for me was quite interesting because what a contradiction. What a contradiction. Yeah. So it just helped to cement what I had always been thinking about. Public speaking doesn't come easy for anyone. We all have to work so hard at it, especially because when you stand before people, you must know what you're saying. Remember, people are not stupid. Remember, we are in the era of technology. So people can dismiss you the minute they go to their Google platform and check what you're saying and discover that you're just speaking things that are not there. And people are not shy. They will dismiss you. Remember, not everybody is your family, yeah? People will discredit you. People will speak badly about you and trot you online, yeah? So you want to be very careful. Again, when it comes to public speaking, what you're saying, how you present yourself. And normally, just to start us off, is how do I actually appear before people? Remember, every time you're showing up before an audience, before another person, whether you're just two in a room for the first time, you have 5 seconds to make a first impression. It could be through how you look. It could be through what comes out of your mouth. It could be through your gestures. It could be through how you're dressed. You have 5 seconds every time you appear before a new person to make either a good impression or a bad impression. And once people judge you depending on how you appear, they will either listen to you or not listen to you at all. Let us have that in mind. Yeah. So when you're pitching, when you're going to an interview, when you're going to meet a friend together with other friends, what makes me decide if I want to interact with you? It will be what you say. Is what you're saying aligned to my values? Or you're the type of person who will speak words that I don't even want to hear. And then the next time you're inviting me, I want nothing to do with you. Yeah. So while we may not be liked by everybody, we want to try and ensure that at all times, when we are relating with others, when we are speaking before an audience, then we show up physically, mentally, emotionally. Those 3 aspects must be fully present, fully engaged, fully geared. Otherwise, you're setting up yourself for failure when it comes to public speaking. By show of hands, how many of us have heard about Toastmasters or are in a Toastmasters club? Has any of us heard about Toastmasters? Yes, Sarah, tell us, what do you know about Toastmasters?
I know, okay, so Toastmasters is a club. I think there's also one in Strathmore that helps people with public speaking, with their skills. So they do a lot of, I know they do a lot of like debates and, you know, just mini speeches. Yeah, so I'm not part of it. I didn't think, I'm a very inside person, so such things I shy away from. So I've never been a part of it, but I do know what they're about.
Okay, very good. So today I want to throw us a challenge. She has explained what Toastmasters is. It is exactly what it is. It is a club that helps us grow in terms of leadership skills. Yeah. So not just public speaking, but really leadership skills. Now, for you to be a leader, for sure, you have to find yourself in a situation where you will speak. So Toastmasters has several levels. And as a beginner, there are different sets of speeches that you're supposed to present that will help you portray. So could it be a humorous aspect? Could it be an aspect where you're supposed to use body language? Could it be an aspect where you're supposed to bring in facts? So research, like you've researched on something and you're presenting a speech. So want to test the facts. Did you read your material well? Are you presenting what you're knowledgeable about? It could be the aspect of storytelling. Yeah. So it tests different levels of speech, different levels of ideation, and how you're able to mesh all this together and stand before an audience and deliver. And you will be graded, okay, graded not in the sense of I'm giving you marks, but you'll have people evaluating you and telling you, this is how you used your gestures. This is how you kept on saying. There's actually a person who counts how many R's, you know, the way people speak and they're like, what I meant to say, you have somebody counting that. Yeah. So Toastmasters ultimately at the end of the day is yes for you, Sarah, and for many others who think they're introverts and this is not for them because they just don't want to be in the limelight. You'd be amazed on how the skills you learn will just help bring you out of your shell and into a, you know, a star that has been hidden for so long. And I say this because I think I have seen it with the people in my family. My husband is an introvert, but I have seen how Toastmasters has helped him come out of his shell to the level he's now forever on news, forever presenting things in front of people. I have seen how it has helped him rise in terms of his career. I have seen how it has helped me as a person rise. Now, do I belong to a club? No, but I attend several sessions as a guest. And guess what? Being a guest has helped me pick up many skills through Toastmasters. So it's one of the things I would challenge us. The clubs are many, yeah? Feel free to attend any just as a guest. And these days you have the advantage of having online sessions. So let's just delve a bit into introduction of what public speaking is all about, and then we'll be able to continue with this in the next class. Okay, so when we talk about public speaking, it means that you are presenting a particular idea in front of an audience. Your audience could be one person, your audience could be a full room, yeah? But ultimately, at the end of the day, it is an individual presenting something before an audience. And there are different types of speeches. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we say communication should serve three functions: to inform, to educate, no, not three, four, to inform, to educate, to persuade, and to entertain. Yeah, and sometimes there's the aspect of inspiration. When I speak to inspire you, depending on, again, the audience, your context. So every time you develop a speech, ask yourself, or every time you have to present something before people, ask yourself, like Felicitas shared with us, that the first time she was presenting, she was doing it for, I think she mentioned a project that she was presenting. Yeah, so that is a very formal presentation. So ask yourself, what is my context? And what do I want my hearers, my audience to get out of what I am about to say? Yeah, so it doesn't have to be so formal. It could even be in a family setup. To always ask yourself, what is the intention of my communication today? As I go meet my friends today, what do I want to put out? Yeah, so that aspect of constantly thinking then helps you to also develop a habit of being intentional about what you're saying and how you're saying it. So are we informing? Are we entertaining? Are we persuading? Are we inspiring? Let's be aware. Yeah. So when you go before an audience, you want to ensure the following aspects. The following aspects are that your speech is organized. And when we talk about speech organization, it has to have an introduction, the body, which is the flesh, and the conclusion, the key takeaways. Yeah. So when you say speech organization, what are you organizing? You're organizing content. What content are you organizing? Again, this will depend on the context of the people you're dealing with. How do you organize that content? How do you bring in the facts? How do you ensure that your introduction is compelling so that you hook your audience? Because if you have a boring introduction, my friends, people will switch off, as in you're dead on arrival. Nobody will listen to you. So you always want to ensure that your introduction is very powerful, very compelling, and that can be done in various ways. It could be that you start your speech with a story. It could be that you vary your tone, meaning you start with a high pitch. It could be that you start with humor. It could be that you ask your audience a question. So how do you make your introduction compelling so that when you step before an audience, you command authority, that people actually raise their heads, raise their eyes to look at you and to listen to you? Yeah. And normally we say, if you're the type who is not confident, when you stand before people, you've organized your content, you've organized your speech, don't belabor the points. Don't overemphasize points. Get to the point of the story. Get to the point of your speech. Get to the flesh of the matter. Yeah. Some people want to start their introductions in a compelling manner with a story, but your introduction goes on and on and on. And what does that do for your audience? What does that do for your audience? It makes them bored because they're wondering, okay, are we finishing or not? Yeah. So get to the point. Be sure of the language you're using. Is it English? Is it Kiswahili? Avoid using jargon. And if you must use jargon, break it down for people. Avoid using slang. How is your body language? How are you standing? How are you sitting? What is your facial expression? Then vocal variety. Use high tones. Know when to go low, but don't be at monotone. Ensure you've researched well. Have visual aids. Do you want to use a flip chart? Do you have diagrams in your presentation? How do you make it interesting for people to be able to take in what you're saying in an interesting manner? So because of time, allow me to stop at that. We will end our presentation there for today, but we will pick up next time from here. I hope we've been able to get quite some insights on public speaking and active listening. If there should be any question, please feel free to chime in at this point. Let me stop sharing. Remember, again, I will put up these slides in the e-learning platform today. I promise to do it today, so you'll be able to go through. Is there any question before I release you? Again, my number and my contacts are in the chat, so feel free to reach out to me should you have any question. Again, we have our unknown user here with the hands up. Please go ahead and speak. I think you said it's Wisdom, so go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it is a question that would probably be carried to the next class, but
Okay.
just to put it out there, do we really have a comeback from the first 5 seconds of approach? That is, yes, the mistake has happened. You are in a position of leadership. You flopped the first point. Do we really have a comeback, or how do we go about that?
It depends on the person you're dealing with. Some people are people of second chances, but remember, again, it's contextual. If you walk into an interview room and you're discredited, you do not have a second chance because you will lose the opportunity. If you're dealing with a person in terms of interpersonal communication and you're trying to talk to somebody and you showed up in a manner that is discrediting, that person could give you a chance to redeem yourself. Yeah. Again, remember, when you're dealing with relationships, it's really dependent on the person you're dealing with. If it's a man to woman, some ladies will dismiss you and you'll never have a comeback. Yeah, so it depends on the context. Some opportunities will be second chances, and others, it's a chance gone altogether. I hope I have answered you.
For this case instance, I would say you are in a position where you have to deliberately speak like on a timeline, or maybe let's say on a weekly basis, or you would have to take this growth from month 1 to month 2 until December or something. But yes, January was a flop. How do we carry about it?
Yes, in that case, I would say many times, especially those who are getting into leadership for the first time and are faced with this challenge, or you're in a scenario where this is your first time presenting. Yes, I mean, accept also as an individual that today didn't go well, but the next time you have an opportunity to stand before an audience, remember that is your second chance and you're being given a chance to redeem yourself. So you better show up, from looks to content to commanding authority before people. And commanding authority does not mean you're shouting. Commanding authority does not mean you're raising your voice. It is what you present and how you present it. So yes, second chances are there, but it's upon also the person not to self-doubt and self-sabotage too much because the first time went badly. It's to accept that it didn't go well, and what can I do next time to redeem myself? Then again, let's get into the habit of asking for feedback. Because when we ask for feedback, then we are constantly improving. We constantly pick up on our weaknesses.
Thank you very much. It answers it all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question, Wisdom. And that brings us to the end of our session today. I have enjoyed giving you this session, and I hope that you have also picked a few things that will be useful even as you continue to carry on with the various activities